Can you believe that Rick and Morty starts with a mad scientist kidnapping his grandson for interdimensional adventures like it's a regular Tuesday morning? Rick is the kind of guy who'll say, "You know what, Morty? We're going to destroy the multiverse, but first, let me drink this portal juice." Seriously, this show is like if Albert Einstein and a drunken squirrel decided to create a family-friendly space adventure but forgot about the family-friendly part. It's like a toxic relationship, but with infinite universes and an unreasonable amount of burping. Rick Sanchez, the genius who's too smart to care about anything except his own ego and alcohol. Rick Sanchez is a man of extreme contradictions. He's a genius inventor, but his moral compass is basically a broken compass that points to "I don't care." He's the kind of guy who has the ability to destroy entire realities, but instead, he spends his time drinking, burping, and making Morty's life a living hell. Can you believe that this guy has the entire universe at his fingertips but would rather crack sarcastic jokes and show his grandson how to traumatize aliens? Honestly, Rick might be the smartest guy in the room, but his emotional IQ is lower than a hamster's. Morty Smith, the kid who's just trying to survive his grandfather's misadventures. Then there's Morty. Poor Morty. The kid is literally stuck in a mind-bending existential crisis thanks to his mad scientist grandpa who treats him like a lab rat in his personal space circus. Morty doesn't even get a chance to be a regular teenager. He's too busy running from alien spaceships or getting emotionally scarred by alternate versions of his family. And yet, Morty somehow survives all of it with a half-sincere, half-terrified attitude, as if he's constantly like, "I just wanted to go to prom, Rick. Can you stop making me face my own inevitable existential dread for 5 minutes?" Beth and Jerry, the most dysfunctional, uninspiring couple in the universe. You thought your parents were bad? Meet Beth and Jerry Smith, the couple who couldn't even stay together if they were the last two people in the multiverse. Beth is constantly trying to get validation from Rick, which is awkward and sad since Rick's emotional range is as expansive as a puddle. Meanwhile, Jerry is the kind of guy who gets outsmarted by literally everything, and his entire existence seems to be about failing upward. Watching them try to keep their marriage together in the most dysfunctional way possible is honestly more entertaining than the interdimensional adventures half the time. Beth and Jerry are like that couple who can't decide whether they should break up or start a cult together. Interdimensional adventures. Just an excuse to exploit every possible joke. The interdimensional adventures in Rick and Morty are wild. They're just a thinly veiled excuse to throw every ridiculous concept into the mix. One minute you're fighting robot versions of your own family, and the next you're trying to get out of an alien porn universe. Yep, that happened. The idea of interdimensional travel here is less about exploration and more about Rick throwing his grandson into situations where the only way out is by making fun of everyone and breaking every rule of reality. Forget heroes' journeys. This is a show about bending time and space like it's a bad joke. The philosophy of Rick and Morty. Life is futile, but let's keep laughing anyway. At its core, Rick and Morty is a philosophical nightmare. The show constantly asks questions like, what is the meaning of life, and why are we here, and then answers with, there is no meaning. Just get drunk and laugh at your problems. Rick and Morty is like that guy at the bar who reads Nietzsche in between swigs of whiskey, and then gives you an impromptu lecture about the absurdity of existence, while trying to figure out how to get out of a conversation about tax returns. There's this dark, cynical edge that makes you think about your place in the universe. But then you're interrupted by a talking pickle. So, typical. Can you believe that some of this actually happens? Let's not forget how the show just casually throws in absurd concepts, like a headless version of Jerry that has to live a sad life because Rick accidentally turned him into a version of himself without a head. Somehow that's still less absurd than the time Rick turned into a pickle just because he didn't want to go to therapy. But hey, this is Rick and Morty, where nothing makes sense, and everything is a metaphor for personal nihilism and alcohol dependence. The Pickle Rick episode. Honestly, a masterpiece in absolute stupidity. You can't talk about Rick and Morty without mentioning Pickle Rick. Can you believe that Rick literally turned himself into a pickle just to avoid going to therapy? That's like the most Rick thing ever. And then, because being a pickle isn't challenging enough, he ends up fighting off a Russian mob while trying to avoid getting turned into pickle paste. The episode is absurd, yet it somehow explores Rick's trauma and addiction issues in a way too real manner. This is a show where existential horror can exist next to a sentient pickle escaping human traffickers. What a time to be alive,